An inner sense of safety, real from within and on solid ground inside yourself, are easy phrases to use, but they may not be so easily recognized as part of someone's everyday experience. Sooner or later, the question arises, is the having of a sense of self something else at which we poor fallible human beings can feel? The short answer is no. If being real from within or having solid ground inside are not part of your experience, you are certainly not doomed to lack a sense of self and self-determination forever. A lack of inner security is developed in relationship with others or as the result of the lack of satisfactory relationship with others, especially during the crucial years of infancy and early childhood. That is one of the most basic concepts of psychoanalysis because those are the years when events are not analyzed and rationalized but hit at the guts and stay there. However, this same configuration, relationship with others, also has the potential for unequaled pleasure, growth, and learning. And this includes discovering that for all but the most severely damaged of us a way can be found towards that important sense of inner reality. This does not happen by changing the past. That isn't possible. It happens through coming to understand more about the individual dynamics of your own history. Through discovering how the past is affecting you in the present and, as crucially, through a shift in attitude to what happened in the past with Ken, like Astrid's memory of childhood's mealtimes, transform your present and your future for the better. Sometimes these shifts in attitude happen gradually and naturally. Sometimes more concentrated efforts are needed, with the support a therapist or committed friend, or perhaps a fairly determined process of self-inquiry. What is needed as a starting point is a sense, no matter how tentative, that your own life is worth some attention, and that your own self is worth discovering. At the heart of any change in attitude is knowledge. Not simply knowledge at a cerebral level, but knowledge at the deep level when something strikes you with real force in the emotions and body as well as in the mind because it is what you have been needing and seeking to know. The relief I felt was just enormous, said Penny to me, when I came to realize that I had gone way beyond the limits of my parents' experiences and emotional understanding, and that I did not have to repeat the kind of limp, emotionally draining family life which they accepted and even promoted as normal. I do not feel angry with them, nor pity either. I just feel grateful that good luck and determination have driven me to find out what had been going on and to refuse to accept that. Penny is a large-hearted woman in her late 60s who wept as she said, "We were taught to honor the commandment, love thy neighbor as thyself, yet the real message was love the neighbor and neglect thyself. Loving yourself amounted to selfishness. But now, I know that the commandment should really be love thyself, and then you can love thy neighbor." But it has taken me most of my adult life to realize that. How trust develops, the nature of someone's relationships with others, whether their tone reflects compulsive neediness, involuntary isolation, or relatively satisfying flexibility is largely determined by the development of a sense of self, or by the disruptions in such development. The person who can trust that she or he is living her own life is able to interact with others without feeling either defensive or painfully needy. The person who feels real inside can be alone without fearing that she or he will cease to exist, either in her own mind or in the minds of other people. She knows that when she is not with the people she loves, she can still be held by them and is real in their thoughts. She knows too that when she is alone, she is not alone with no one, but is alone with her own imagination, thoughts and feelings, experiences and memories. In short, she is alone with her own self. It's an impressive list of outcomes, but who has this feeling of living their own life or of reality within, and how did they come by it? Temperament plays a significant part. Some people are apparently settled from an early age. Others are more volatile or more vulnerable. Social circumstances also matter. And it would be impossible to overemphasize how vital it is to pay attention to the gentle arts of care, encouragement, and acceptance of older children and other adults, as we more routinely do our infants. The capacity to be comfortably alone flows from satisfying experiences of being with someone else. What's more, satisfying experiences of being with someone else fuel a continuing capacity to be alone without feeling adrift or lonely. It is exceptionally useful to understand this simple insight. Many people who find it hard to be alone blame or despise themselves, or know themselves so little they do not realize that they can't be alone but fill their lives with work, people, noise, booze, or drugs. Yet lacking the capacity to be alone is not a moral crime, nor is it a life sentence. What is called for is retrieving some sense of what being with other people was like, what attachment felt like, especially during the years of infancy and early childhood, until though experiences of attachment are at least partially understood, it is difficult to make sense of why aloneness might seem threatening or entrapping. When things are going well for an infant, the mother stands in for the parts of the infant which are helplessly immature, and comforts the infant through the stages of learning, which teach the child that although need is felt within, it must be met from without. With this comes a crucial learning that within and without are not the same place, just as self and other are not the same person. The next giant step for the infant is to experience through trial and error that it is possible to be separate from the person to whom he or she is attached without losing his sense of attachment. In other words, the child can have these internal experiences of the person even in their absence, just as the caregiver goes on having experiences of him even when he is not there. It is not difficult to see how acquiring this sense of confidence that you can have someone even in their absence will color your adult experiences of intimacy and solitude. Your feeling that you can or cannot get enough of someone. Your feeling that you are alone with or without your internal experiences of the people who are important to you. A very young child can only believe in what is present. When the mother of a toddler goes out of the room and the child screams, he or she may be screaming as a way of saying, "Don't go." He may be screaming because he has no power to stop his mother going unless he screams harder and longer, and his mother cannot bear it. But, and here is the rub, he may be screaming out of an uncomprehending fear that the mother who is disappearing forever, and worse yet, that she is taking with her their shared sense that he is someone, without her present assuring him that he is someone, he may be no one. This threatens total oblivion. The peek-a-boo games common to child allow a child to learn to express and to master his fear that someone who has disappeared will not come back. And eventually, when things go reasonably well for the child, something else is also learned. Even his mother's absence, he goes on existing. A child does not need to have suffered the experience of a genuinely disappearing parent to fear that without his mother's belief that he is someone, he will be no one. It can be demonstrated by children whose parents are almost constantly present and almost as constantly cheerful and devoted. From our own adult fears, we catch glimpses of the infantile panic that there will be no one, and that if there is no one, then I, too, am no one or nothing. My anxiety at the doors of the university cafeteria was a rerun of that familiar panic. We can even speculate that a child's fear of darkness may not be a fear that darkness hides a scary someone, but that in the darkness there is no one at all. Times of crisis show this most poignantly. When the abandoned lover screams, "I can't live without him," she is screaming her fear that in place of a sense of self, which is an internal experience, she has borrowed an identity from outside herself. This is not something she has chosen to do. Her belief is that the man, or the relationship, has given her an identity. In removing himself, he is taking her identity self away. He is not there, and now she wonders, most painfully, who am I? Having a reasonably secure sense of self does not free you entirely from wondering what will happen if you are suddenly alone, or are alone for too long, nor does it free you from needing other people. On the contrary, most of us long for feelings of sustaining connection. Problems arise not through wanting or having such connections, but from believing that without those connections in the present, we will no longer be alive, or that without those connections, we are not full or worthy of life. The infant's inner psychic development is just as phenomenal as his or her more obvious physical strides. Before the first year of life is over, the child, who has begun life as wholly dependent, is already beginning to develop a capacity for concern for others that will eventually lead to empathy and intimacy. At only 18 months old, a child is capable of creating separate images of mother and child, enabling the child who has received good enough care to call up an image of his mother in her absence, so that if his mother is not away for too long, and if the care the child gets during her absence is loving, his mother can go on being his good mother, even when she is not physically present. That marks the beginning of the vital capacity to have someone, even in their absence, a capacity which can transform the adult to be experience of both intimacy. I am with you. I can have enough of you. And of solitude. I am alone with my thoughts, my memories, my experiences, to which I am entitled. Yet, even when all has not gone well in infancy, a person is not condemned to loneliness or to unsatisfactory relationships. Life, faith, insight, and determination all provide opportunities to retrieve a sense of connection to your own self and others. My writing this book and your reading it are testimony to that. Equally, things may go well in childhood, but nevertheless, through circumstances that undermine or emotionally stretch them too far, the adult can lose their sense of steady ground within and feel tossed into terrifying chaos with little or no sense left of who I am.